On an ordinary Thursday morning, a young, active woman by the name of Nikki Kuhnhausen embarked on a journey that would permanently alter the course of her life. She left her friend's home excited to meet the man who had given her a spark. Their romance began as a result of their late-night Snapchat conversations while using her friend's phone together. Now that their paths had intersected, there was potential for a blooming romance or a thrilling fling. Youthful and spirited, Nikki embraced the thrill of life on her terms. Her departure held an air of mystery, for she kept her destination a secret. However, unknown to her friends and family, a suspenseful story began to develop. 4 days went by, and Nikki's absence grew more concerning. Lisa Woods, her mother, usually spoke to her every day or two, but on June the 10th, something felt wrong. Lisa reached out to Nikki's friend, who hadn't seen her either. The worry intensified, and Lisa started searching for answers, contacting Nikki's other friends to gather any information that could help find her daughter. They too had not laid eyes on Nikki since that morning. In the face of mounting distress, Lisa Woods hastily dialed the Vancouver Police Department, her voice laced with worry as she lodged a missing persons report for her beloved daughter. Local law enforcement sprang into action. Nikki, a mere 17 years old, stood on the edge of her 18th birthday, her tender age casting an ominous shadow over her disappearance. Though she exuded an aura of confidence, fearlessness, and maturity, Nikki bore an additional weight on her shoulders. She was a trans woman navigating a world plagued by prejudice and violence. The year had already witnessed the cruel demise of 24 trans individuals in the United States, victims of hate crimes, their identities weaponized against them. As a minor, Nikki's vulnerability to such horrors grew exponentially. From the tender age of 6, Nikki, born Nikos Kuhnhausen, defied societal norms, embracing her true gender identity as a girl. Supported unwaveringly by her mother, she shed her former name, emerging unapologetically as Nikki. She refused to cower before the judgments and intimidation. Yet now, the burning question loomed. Where had Nikki vanished to? Why had she not reached out to anyone? In response to their despair, friends and relatives came together and intensified the hunt. The streets of Vancouver and the nearby Oregon city of Portland were covered in posters featuring Nikki's visage. Someone would undoubtedly notice her existence, either by catching a glance or responding to the scream for help. But as the days passed, no leads emerged. Lisa Woods, Nikki's mother, was consumed by an unwavering determination that propelled her into the depths of a suspenseful personal investigation. Driven by her undying love for her daughter, Lisa embarked on a relentless pursuit of answers, delving deep into the shadows that surrounded Nikki's mysterious disappearance. She reached out to every corner of Nikki's extensive network of friends, pursuing every lead that came her way. Days turned into weeks, and yet Lisa refused to yield to despair. Each step forward felt like a step deeper into tension as she confronted the secrets that threatened to keep Nikki forever hidden. Then, on that fateful day of June the 13th, a glimmer of hope pierced the dense fog of Lisa's despair. She shared crucial information with Vancouver police officer Jake Carlo. The weight of her discoveries, acquired through her tireless pursuit, rested on the shoulders of this law enforcement officer. According to Lisa's harrowing account, Nikki vanished from her friend's apartment at the break of dawn around 6 a.m. in the company of an enigmatic Russian man. The circumstances surrounding their meeting remained shrouded in ambiguity, further fueling Lisa's determination to uncover the truth. Days turned into weeks once again, and uncertainty gripped Lisa's soul like a vice. But the relentless flow of time carried with it another twist in the intricate tapestry of Nikki's disappearance. On June the 19th, a profound breakthrough surfaced, propelling Lisa further into the abyss of suspense. It was Tiffany McConnell, one of Nikki's trusted friends, who placed a call to the Vancouver Police Department, a voice laced with urgency. Officer Brandon DeGraw, ever vigilant in his duty to protect and serve, received the call from Tiffany. A conduit of unsettling news that struck at the core of Lisa's being. The words tumbled from Tiffany's trembling lips, revealing that Nikki had been spotted once again in the company of the enigmatic Russian man on that very morning. The sinister presence of this figure cast a shadow over Lisa's hopes, igniting a renewed sense of urgency and an unsettling realization that Nikki's fate was entangled with this enigmatic stranger. Lisa's resolve strengthened as the suspense increased around her. As the puzzle pieces came together, a terrifying picture of Nikki's disappearance began to emerge. The weight of the unknowable increased with each day that went by, igniting Lisa's relentless search for the truth and her unflinching faith that she would eventually find her daughter, no matter what. Lisa Woods kept up her constant search for further information at the same time. She contacted Officer Jake Carlo once more, telling him that Nikki had been using Faithfield's cell phone, one of the ladies she had spent late nights with before going missing. This phone had been used to engage in conversations with the man in question, eventually leading to a crucial piece of evidence. Detective David Jansen, part of the Vancouver Police Department, made contact with Lisa, gathering essential information. Armed with Nikki's Snapchat username provided by her friends, the detective swiftly initiated an emergency request to Snapchat, seeking access to the conversations Nikki had engaged in on the night before her vanishing and that morning. A sparkle of progress appeared when a new day broke. The police ultimately peeled back the layers of Nikki's digital interactions after obtaining the long-awaited evidence from Snapchat with the use of an official search warrant. A realization hit Nikki's friends and family when the date turned from June the 26th to June the 27th. A distressing 22 days had passed since anyone had seen or heard from her. However, because of Snapchat's tremendous help, detectives finally had a glimpse of hope. A breakthrough was made possible by the retrieved chat from that fateful morning, which revealed the contact information associated with the username of the person Nikki had communicated with and eventually met, a man by the name of David Bogdanov. David, a 25-year-old immigrant who had arrived in the United States several years ago, resided in Vancouver alongside his brothers, who were all established tradespeople and contractors in the local community. Equipped with this crucial knowledge, law enforcement promptly took action to secure warrants, allowing them to track the geographical locations of David's phone during the specific evening and morning under investigation. The digital evidence began to weave a compelling narrative. It revealed that on the night in question, David had been present at his brother Stan's residence, situated in the southern region of the city, not far from Nikki's residence on that ominous morning. With the identification of a person of interest, the investigators felt a glimmer of hope coursing through their veins, an opportunity to unravel the enigma of Nikki's disappearance. Despite their attempts to interview him, David Bogdanov abruptly vanished from the scene. On June the 28th, a day after Nikki's disappearance came to light, Bogdanov left the country. In a puzzling turn of events, he'd secured a one-way ticket to Ukraine, half a world away, to visit his family. The threads of the investigation frayed as they struggled to bridge the vast distance that now separated them from their lead. No trace of Nikki emerged in the following months. However, a glimmer of renewed hope ignited when Bogdanov finally made his way back home. Detectives from the Vancouver Police Department pounced on the opportunity, swiftly bringing him in for questioning. Every piece of information he possessed could prove vital in their pursuit of the truth. On October the 2nd, 2019, Bogdanov found himself seated in the interrogation room, facing the questions of the detectives. In a surprising turn of events, he appeared cooperative, willingly sharing his side of the story. According to Bogdanov's account, he had been out drinking with his brother on that ill-fated night. As they made their way homeward, their gaze caught sight of Nikki walking their path. Compelled by curiosity, Bogdanov convinced his brother to pull over, seizing the opportunity to engage in conversation with her.
We're just sitting in the car parked on the road and saw Nikki walking across the street by herself. I told my brother to wait in the car, and I went and approached Nikki by myself. She seemed a little maybe upset, and trying to talk to her, it was as if she was just like looking right through me. You know, we were looking at each other, but she's like looking past me almost as if. We had a brief conversation. I just wanted to check up on her, see that she's doing okay. It's middle of the night. She's walking by herself in the middle of downtown. You know, I've known it to be not the safest of places. And wanted to see that she's okay. Chatted to her for a little bit just to see if she needs any help, if she needs a ride anywhere, and she just said no. Basically, she's fine. At one point, I gave her my jacket because it was chilly outside. Gave her my Snapchat username, and she had to remember it because she didn't have a phone on her, and we parted ways. Can't remember exactly what time it was, but Nikki adds me on Snapchat. It was probably a couple hours after our initial interaction, or I saw her on the street. She had dropped off an address and told me to come pick her up. On Snapchat, she just sent me either a pin or just an address. I took Stan's van. We had that one car between the two of us at that time, and drove by myself and to go pick up Nikki.
Bogdanov's narrative unraveled within the confines of the interrogation room. He confessed to engaging in online conversations with Nikki on that fateful night, culminating in plans to meet up the following morning. According to his account, they did indeed meet, engaging in a conversation that stretched on for a while. Yet Nikki had chosen to withhold her intended destination, leaving Bogdanov in a state of uncertainty. And just like that, the lead fizzled out, an apparent dead end. With no phone to track her movements, Nikki seemed to vanish into thin air. The last known contact rested with the young man, who openly admitted to encountering her on the previous night, only to witness her walking away from his van, evaporating from sight. Bogdanov appeared to be free of any serious suspicion because of the lack of any warning signs in his past. As far as the detectives could tell, he had no criminal history that could cast a negative light on his reputation. For the residents of Vancouver and Portland, life went on as the news of Nikki's abduction progressively lost its impact. But even when the spotlight dimmed, friends and relatives persisted in their work. In a desolate and overgrown expanse tucked away at the base of a treacherously steep hill, a grim discovery awaited a group of hikers. As their eyes surveyed the surroundings, a jolt of horror coursed through their veins. A human skull silently greeted their gaze, and among the bushes were the ghastly remains of a human being. Swiftly, they contacted the local authorities, triggering the establishment of a crime scene at the site. Forensic teams descended upon the area, meticulously scouring every inch and unearthing the remnants of an almost complete human skeleton. Alongside the remains, they recovered a vibrant jacket, assorted personal effects, and an object that would soon be identified as the weapon utilized in the gruesome act, a cell phone recharging cord cruelly entwined around the victim's neck. A few strands of the victim's hair, entangled within the knot, lingered as somber testimonies amidst the forest floor's debris and loamy soil. Additionally, several rings and fragments of jewelry were unearthed, bearing silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. Initially, the police approached the discovery with cautious restraint, refraining from immediately declaring the remains as Nikki's. While her physical characteristics remain aligned with her size and physique, it was imperative to await identification by the medical examiner's office. Through meticulous extraction and analysis of DNA from both Nikki and the discovered remains, along with the examination of hair strands entwined in the knotted cell phone cord, the medical examiner's office would ultimately confirm the heartbreaking truth. Meanwhile, as the results hung in the balance, the investigators dug into the geolocation records of Bogdanov's cell phone on the day of Nikki's disappearance. Within those digital traces, the evidence they sought materialized. Bogdanov had been near the ominous location on Larch Mountain that very morning, solidifying the connection between him and the grim crime scene. With the weight of evidence and the identification of the remains, the police took decisive action on December the 17th. Bogdanov was arrested and brought in for questioning, where he initially clung to his original story.
When we spoke to you last time, I don't know if you recall the whole conversation, but you said that you met her earlier in the evening, met her downtown, hung out with her for a while, drank some vodka together and gave her a coat, and then she went home and then you met her again later. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay. And what you told us at the time was that you and Stan went back to Archer's house up there at 114, and you needed your van because you're going to go to work. Stan needed to take his van his job, right? And at that time was when Nikki told you that Nikki was really a he, and that's when you're like, I'm not into this, and kicked her out of the van, sent her on her way, okay? Then after that, you said that you went, so you said you were going to go to
I went to work.
Stan's, you were saying you're going to go to Stan's job site?
No, I went to my other brother.
Okay. Oh, your other brother, is it Archer's job site?
Eli.
Ely, okay. So you're going to go to his job site, but then you ended up, you're going to go to your job site, but you ended up just staying at his job site.
Yeah, I was confusing. I don't remember.
Yeah. It sounded like you said that you were going to go to your job site.
Basically, I went to work.
Yeah, you went to work. Okay. What got us here today is I want to talk to you about a trip that you took before you went to the job site.
Sensing an opportunity to uncover more, the detectives offered him a chance to amend his narrative, urging him to share any details he may have omitted about that fateful day. Yet Bogdanov merely shrugged, sticking to his initial account. Unbeknownst to him, the interrogators skillfully guided the conversation, subtly insinuating their knowledge of his whereabouts without directly revealing it.
You didn't just go to work, did you?
I think I went to work. It was a fuzzy day, but I don't want to work.
Okay, all right. So understand that you're being arrested today for the murder of Nikki Kuhnhausen, whose remains have been discovered. Okay. Who was strangled to death. Okay. So we're going to put you back in handcuffs. All right. Stand up for me, please. We're not going to ask you any additional questions because you invoked your right to legal counsel. Okay. That is what's going to happen today. So.
All right, sit down.
Sit down here, and we are going to finish doing some paperwork. Have some other things you need to do, maybe a little while. Okay. We may put you in a temporary holding cell for a bit, get you something to drink. You're probably going to be here for a little while. And then you're going to be booked. All right?
Detectives were eventually able to contact Mr. Bogdanov. He confirmed in a meeting with him that he had picked Nikki up at the apartment that morning. David and Nikki went to a residence in the county, and at this time, David says Nikki told him that she was biologically male. David gave a statement that made him really, really uncomfortable and disturbed him, and he asked Nikki to get out of his van, and she walked away. According to David, that was the last time she was seen. More investigative information came in, showed a number of inconsistencies with the statement that he made to detectives. Based on the location of the remains and the earlier obtained evidence, detectives decided to attempt a second interview with David. We attempted contact with him yesterday, and he declined to give any further statements. At that point, he was arrested for second-degree murder. Of course, our condolences go out to the family and friends of Nikki.
Subsequently, Bogdanov faced the grave charge of second-degree murder, a crime carrying a potential sentence of up to 20 years in prison under Washington state law. The police elucidated the factors that led to this specific charge.
This is a second-degree murder case. Can you describe why that is based on what you're...
Well, so the difference becomes premeditation. And so until we can flesh that out with the prosecutor's office, again, the detectives put the charge on the piece of paper that they think the probable cause supports at the time. As the investigation continues to unfold, new evidence may be obtained. The prosecutor may review it and think there's a more appropriate charge.
When Bogdanov appeared in court, he made a plea for his release, but it was denied. The court placed particular emphasis on the actions Bogdanov took following the incident, such as seeking assistance from a friend to dispose of the car he'd been using during that time. Furthermore, Bogdanov had purchased a one-way ticket to Ukraine, which raised concerns about his accessibility to legal proceedings. These factors heavily influenced the decision to detain him until the trial. Notably, the whereabouts of the vehicle itself remains unknown, adding a layer of difficulty to the investigation as nobody has any information about its location. Bogdanov's trial didn't start until August 2021, and a decision was made in the Clark County, Washington Superior Court. An influential grassroots group called the Justice for Nikki Task Force arose a year and a half before the trial to make sure the hate crime component of the murder would not be disregarded. Their main goal was to prevent any attempts by the defense to employ a clear strategy that might succeed. Unable to separate himself from the terrible incident and the murder, Bogdanov mainly relied on a defense case that the killing was accidental and resulted from his attempts to defend himself during a sudden fight after learning of Nikki's biological identity as a woman.
The door for Nikki, she got in, and then I went around and got in the driver's seat myself. While I was filling up, I realized I needed to use the bathroom, and so I stopped by back at the house. It was just around the corner, and went to use the bathroom. I went inside the house. Nikki stayed in the car, and I was gone for a couple minutes maybe. Went to use the bathroom, and then came back to the car. I came back, and I opened my driver's door and saw that Nikki was moved to the back seat now. Back of the car. I was anticipating, thought that we're just gonna hook up probably, and I'm just gonna drop her off. I eventually got in the back. She invited me to come sit in the back with her. Before I got into the back seat, I removed my gun that was on me. Well, she invited me to come sit in the back. I removed my gun. I told her that I concealed carry, and have a concealed carry permit, so that she doesn't freak out or anything. And I reached in and wedged the gun between the center console and the driver's seat. Kind of pulled the seat back and just wedged it there. It's where I oftentimes had it. So if I'm sitting in the driver's seat, it's right by my knee. We chatted for a little bit. That transitioned into us making out. I reach over as she's bent over. I reach over and put my hand in her pants. I worked around the layers of clothing and felt what was clearly balls and penis. I was in shock. I had just been deceived. I freak out and I push her back towards the passenger's door, and I just start freaking out, saying, I'm sorry if I cuss, but I was saying, what the fuck? What is this? You didn't tell me you're a dude. And started yelling at her said she's a disgusting piece of crap. She lunges at me and hits me across the face.
Okay. And then how do you react?
I shove her kind of hard. I'm trying to push her back to her driver's seat, and I keep telling her to just get the fuck out of my car.
Okay. Then what does she do?
When she hit the passenger's door with her back, when I shoved her, she kind of picked up her foot and tried to just kick me with her foot from the passenger side. And at that time, I tried to swipe her feet so that she doesn't hit me in the face, and I block her feet and I put them down into the foot weld. And at that time, when I put them down, she just jumps up and goes towards the center console, towards my gun. At this point, the overwhelming feeling and thought was like a fight or flight mode just kicks in, and all I can think is, oh my God, I'm gonna get shot right now. This person's crazy. It's just a back and forth struggle between me and trying to pull her back, her trying to hit me in my face and reach forward for the gun at the same time. I couldn't get a hold of her, couldn't stop her, and then in the passenger seat, the front passenger seat in the rear pocket was hanging out my phone cord, my charging cable, and in that struggle, I grabbed that cable and put it around her, and so I can hold on to it and pull her back like that, and hold her from keep going forward for the gun. I pull her back and try to keep her from the gun and just lean to the side a little bit.
What is she doing?
And the whole time she's trying to fight me and just reaching back and scratching at my face, trying to gouge my eyes. I'm just trying to keep my head away from her hands and struggling with her, and the whole time I was just yelling for her to stop. And I was just wanting to keep her from the car, from the gun, and to maybe open the door somehow and just pull her out, kick her out of the car. But she was just actively fighting me and scratching my eyes, trying to scratch out my eyes. She passed out. And I thought she just passed out, you know, like I've seen on TV and fighting sports, people get choked out and just go to sleep for a little bit. I push her off to the side and go for my gun myself to secure the gun.
And so it's tied into a circle, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that? Do you know why it was like that?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
It's a really long cable, it's 5 or 6 foot cable, and I was using it in my center console to charge my phone, and because it's so long, it always keeps falling in between the passenger seat and the center console and getting under the seat and getting stuck every time. Every time I'm having to fish it out from under there whenever I'm trying to use it. So what I did is just folded it in half so that the two ends, the USB end and the end that goes into the phone, are together.
While the deteriorated state of the remains after nearly 6 months in the wilderness precluded the identification of visible bruising or soft tissue injuries, how the cord was knotted around Nikki's neck suggested a struggle. The absence of the gun Bogdanov claimed Nikki had attempted to grab further added to the mystery. It could only be presumed that the weapon, along with the vehicle they were in, had been disposed of. The investigation circled back to that fateful encounter between Bogdanov and Nikki, ultimately revealing the truth.
I came back around to check up on Nikki, and she wasn't waking up. And I started. I tried to check if she's breathing. You know.
Was she?
No.
Nikki Kuhnhausen, who was only 17 years old, unfortunately died at the hands of a man she'd met the night before and may have recently interacted with intimately.
Scared, and I don't know what to do. First thing I think is I need to call the police, and then I think that they're not gonna believe me. You know, I've been up all night, not sober. There's drugs in the car. There's a dead person in the back seat. Yeah, I just didn't think they were gonna believe me. At that point, I thought I need to get rid of the body, because this was a very humiliating thing that happened to me at first, and I was just scared. I didn't want my family to know. I just wanted to put this behind me, like wishing it never happened. I've been up to Large Mountain before shooting, just started practicing, and it's a really close spot to a brush prairie. It's a 15-20 minute drive up there. I thought it was a remote place to go. Pulled her out of the car, and there was that spot by the road where the hill just went down really steep. I just kind of pushed her down that.
Bogdanov experienced a great sense of regret and anxiety as the severity of his deeds weighed heavily on him. Bogdanov received a resounding conviction for second-degree murder from the jury. He was also found guilty of malicious harassment because of the murder's inclusion in the hate crime category. A month later, Judge David Gregson handed down the verdict, ordering a concurrent sentence of 234 months to be served for the second-degree murder conviction and an extra 12 months for the malicious harassment charge. The judge, profoundly moved by the chilling nature of the case and the heartless disposal of Nikki's body, expressed his realization that Nikki, a 17-year-old, could have been anyone's beloved child. Despite the defense request for mercy considering Bogdanov's lack of previous criminal activity, the judge remained resolute in his decision. Currently, Bogdanov is serving his sentence at the Washington Correction Center in Shelton, Washington. Meanwhile, Nikki's body was cremated, and although there is no publicly accessible burial site, her memory is honored through the Nikki Kuhnhausen Act. This significant law in Washington state prohibits the use of a trans panic defense. Nikki's tragic story has sparked conversations and inspired advocacy, fueling a collective determination to create a world where everyone is treated with fairness and equality. Her legacy continues to inspire change, fostering a society that is more inclusive, compassionate, and fair for all.